Coming up, the Yankees and Phillies stay hot while the Rockies lose at home again. This is Locked On Now MLB.
The biggest games, the best performances, expert analysis. You are Locked On Now.
Welcome in. You're listening to Locked On Now MLB, local experts weighing in on the biggest stories in baseball. I'm your host, Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. We've got all of our hosts here helping recap all of the action from yesterday. We're going to begin with the Yankees, who walked off in the Bronx in last night's biggest game.
The biggest game.
Another hot streak has the Yankees winners of 7 in a row and 14 of their last 15 games. New York finished off a sweep of the Rays on Thursday, and our Locked On Yankees host tells you how New York topped Tampa.
This is Stacey Gotsoulias of Locked On Yankees, and the Yankees walked off tonight. They swept the Rays in 3 games. They won their 7th in a row. All's well in the Bronx. They keep winning at home. Unfortunately, they're heading to Toronto for the next 3 games, and then heading to Tampa to face the Rays again for the next 3 games after that. But right now, let's celebrate this, okay? Anthony Rizzo walks off. Anthony Rizzo actually also drove in the first run of the game. They only won by 2-1, but hey, that's all you need. And with the Yankees pitching, they keep them in there and give them just enough room for them to do just a little something and win the game. And that's what happened tonight. Now, because of Severino going on the COVID list, Clark Schmidt started the game. He threw 3 innings of no-run ball, 1 hit, 1 walk, 5 strikeouts. Now, Ryan Weber, who was called up because of Severino going on the COVID list, he pitched 3 2/3. He's the one that gave up the run. No big deal, because Anthony Rizzo said, I got this. So, yeah, the homestand ended on a very positive note, and now the Yankees are heading up to Toronto for 3 games, so we'll have a preview of that series, we'll have a recap of this game, and anything else you need to know on the next Locked On Yankees.
The Phillies offense tallied 10 runs in D.C. last night and soundly beat the Nationals. Locked On Phillies says everything went right for Philadelphia bats on Thursday.
The Phillies win again. They absolutely throttle the Washington Nationals. Connor Thomas, your host of Locked On Phillies. A strong start by Zach Wheeler. An incredible 3rd inning by the Philadelphia Phillies offense, putting up 7 runs after an error by Cesar Hernandez. And from then on, I mean, the game was just over. You can kind of just turn it off and leave because Wheeler's not going to give up that lead. And the Phillies offense did their work. Kyle Schwarber's still hot, just incredibly hot in the month of June. A big night for him, but really everyone on the offense was clicking. And if this is what games are going to be like when you play the Washington Nationals, this team's going to win a lot of games because they got 19% of their remaining games against Washington. 4 more, but a great start for the Phillies offensively, defensively, pitching-wise. I mean, no complaints at all. Just a great, easy win where you beat an inferior team. Let's go do it again tomorrow, eh? What do you say, boys?
The Mets won their series with the Milwaukee Brewers, but another starter could be facing some injury problems for New York. Locked On Mets goes over the win and Tyler McGill's early exit.
The New York Mets win another series, beating the Milwaukee Brewers late, thanks in part to some bad defense by Rowdy Tellez and also some bad base running by the Brewers in that 9th inning. This is Ryan Finkelstein, the host of Locked On Mets, and there will be a lot to discuss on the show tomorrow. Tyler McGill exited this start with shoulder discomfort. Could he be heading back to the IL? I'll talk about that a little bit. Also, go through what was a really thrilling back and forth game. Mark Canha had a big 2-run homer to tie it. Tomas Nido had a clutch RBI hit and some good plays behind the plate defensively. You saw the Mets bullpen, after McGill got pulled, really pick him up and carry the Mets all the way through there. No earned runs by the bullpen, all 4 credited to McGill. And the offense obviously did just enough, again, thanks in part to some shady defense by the Brewers. On the show tomorrow, as I said, we'll talk about McGill, we'll talk about this game, and I'll also talk a little bit about Mark Vientos for a Friday Farm Report. Is he more valuable to the team this year as a trade piece or their DH? We'll go through that on the show.
Coming up, the Orioles beat up on an old friend and the Guardians sweep the Rockies. This is Locked On Now MLB. Today's edition of Locked On Now is brought to you by Bet Online, the #1 spot for all of your online sports betting needs. You can head over there to get in on the Stanley Cup playoffs, of course, MMA and UFC as well. Just head over to betonline.net. Welcome back to Locked On Now MLB. I'm Kainani Stevens. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Let's continue our look around the league.
Let's go around the league.
The Orioles scored 7 runs early on former Baltimore pitcher Kevin Gausman. Now with the Blue Jays, Locked On Orioles takes you through the easy win against the familiar face.
Well, how about that one, Orioles fans? Connor Newcomb here, host of Locked On Orioles. I mean, the bats just jumping all over our old friend Kevin Gausman. Orioles get 7 runs off of Gausman. He records just 7 outs. A 6-run third inning tied for their highest scoring inning of the season. They kept adding on, and the O's win it 10-2. And listen, Tyler Wells had a great day on the mound. He goes 6 innings, allows 1 run. And I feel kind of bad because Tyler Wells was overshadowed by how good this offense was. And this is not Orioles Kevin Gausman. This is Cy Young candidate Kevin Gausman, who was awesome in San Francisco last year, who's been awesome in Toronto this year. First time Gausman has given up 7 runs in a start since June of 2019. It had been 3 years since that happened to him, and the O's did it to him in Toronto to split the 4-game series. Really impressed by that victory, but I'll have the recap of it all coming up on Friday's episode of the Locked On Orioles podcast.
The Guardians picked up another win yesterday for their 7th in 8 games, while the Colorado Rockies got swept at home for the 2nd straight series. Locked On Guardians and Rockies take you through what's going on with 2 teams headed in completely different directions.
Sweep. That is exactly what the Guardians did, and what they should do when you're facing a team like the Rockies. 2 things really stood out for me statistically in this game. One, the Cleveland pitching did not give up a home run in this one. Eli Morgan, Tristan McKenzie, both kind of a little more home run prone. No home runs given up in a Colorado game for a team that's been giving up a lot of home runs this year. Number 2, Colorado had 11 hits and only managed 2 runs. You don't see that often. That is a very low rate of just in general in terms of production. They get the win. Bigger story, it is official. Blitzer is going to be the new minority owner. He now is the first person to have ownership part in all 5 sports, which is a good thing because the front office in Cleveland is spectacular. They are one of the best in the business. We're getting new money, new ownership, hopefully new investment in the team, and hopefully they'll just stay out of the way. It's a special front office right there in Cleveland right now. We want ownership that's going to spend more, but not get in the way of the geniuses that are currently running the Cleveland Guardians.
Rock on Rockies fans. Paul Holden here from the Locked On Rockies podcast. Inexcusable, unacceptable. The Rockies are playing baseball, especially at home, that they simply can't do. Back-to-back sweeps at Coors Field cannot happen. The Rockies cannot out-hit teams and not score more than 2 runs. The Rockies cannot continue to commit errors, especially at home. The Colorado Rockies are a mess. They haven't been able to play consistent baseball all season long. Their biggest backbone, the last piece of the foundation that remained uncracked, has cracked in the home field advantage. The Colorado Rockies 2022 season is a mess, and it continues to be a mess as the Rockies are swept again by the Cleveland Guardians by playing sloppy baseball, not coming up with big hits in big situations, and not getting enough from some members of their pitching staff. We'll break it all down right here on Locked On Rockies.
The sliding Oakland A's managed to fend off the Red Sox in Boston and win for just the 2nd time in 15 games yesterday. Not a great look for a Boston team trying to get back into the playoff picture. Locked On Red Sox says the Boston offense just hasn't been cutting it as of late.
The Red Sox could not complete the sweep of the Oakland Athletics on Thursday as they fell to the A's 4-3 at Fenway Park in a game that was probably a little bit closer than it should have been. Hey, it's Lauren from Locked On Red Sox. The good news, though, is that Boston indeed won the series against the A's. They just could not complete the sweep in the final game of the series on Thursday. The offense is looking like it did in April, which is bad news for the Red Sox and their fans. Trevor Story continues to struggle at the plate. I'll break this all down for you on Friday's episode of Locked On Red Sox.
That's all for today on Locked On Now MLB. Thank you for making Locked On Now your first listen every single weekday. Make sure you check out Locked On MLB and your team's Locked On podcast. I'm Kainani Stevens. This has been Locked On Now.